Okay, excuse the ugliness, but let's continue. So the family. So the family, being the foundation of the nation, is a basic social institution which public policy, including the Constitution, is supposed to cherish and to protect. So the basically importante gyud ang pamilya as a social institution, as a unit sa Pilipinas. And even the country in general. So, kung sa may pasabot sa family. So, family, you are a family if you are a husband and wife. Family ang parent to ang children. And even among brothers and sisters, whether full mo or half-blood. So, it also says here nga ang family home must be constituted jointly by the husband and the wife or by an unmarried head of the family. So, mo ni siya ang balay nga ginapuy-an sa pamilya. So, yeah. So, the beneficiaries of a family home are, of course, the husband and wife or an unmarried person who is the head of the family and their parents, ascendants, descendants, brothers, and sisters, whether their relationship are legitimate or illegitimate. So, moving on to paternity and filiation. So, the filiation of a children may be by nature or by adoption. So, mahimong anak ang usa ka tawo, depende kung, of course, biological, so by nature, or if gi-adopt siya. So, if not biological po, natural filiation, the child can be either legitimate or illegitimate. So, of course, children born during the marriage of the parents are legitimate. So, kung minyo yung ginikanan ay hapa ka na tawo, legitimate ka. So, even if artificial insemination, in vitro fertilization, you are still technically legitimate as long as na-conceive ka during the marriage. And then, children conceived and born outside a valid marriage are classified as illegitimate. So, legitimacy of a child may be impugned only on the following grounds. So, ma-question lang daw ang legitimacy sa usa ka bata kung, first of all, physically impossible sa bana nga nagka-sexual intercourse sa iyahang asawa within the first 120 days of the 300 days which immediately preceded the birth of the child. Kaya kung imo na siyang kwenta-kwentahon, meaning add siya ang apps ani nga nakshibels. So, usap-usad, physical incapacity of the husband. What if baog siya or ganun? So, what if they were living separately in such a way kuno nga sexual intercourse was not possible during this time? Serious illness, sabana, which can prevent sexual intercourse. And if it is proven that for biological or other scientific reasons, the child could not have been that of the husband, DNA testing, for example, that in case of children conceived through artificial insemination, the written authorization or ratification of either parent was obtained through mistake, fraud, violence, intimidation, or undue influence. So, the child can also be considered legitimate even though ang mother may have declared against its legitimacy or have been sentenced as an adulteress. So, regardless, so if the child is legitimate, then legitimate siya. So, if the marriage is terminated and the mother kanang maminyo balik ang mama within 300 days after sa pag-terminate atong previous marriage, muna ang mga rules. So, a child born before 180 days after the solemnization of the bagong nga marriage, kay considered siya nga conceived sa former nga marriage. And then, a child born after sa 180 days sa kaning nga subsequent marriage, kay considered na siya nga conceived sa kaning nga marriage, sa kaning nga bagong. The action to impugn the legitimacy. So, ang pag-question sa legitimacy sa usa ka bata shall be brought within 1 year from the knowledge of the birth or its recording in the civil register. So, dapat i-question dayon ni mo if ganahan ka. Okay. So, the filing of legitimate children is established by, first of all, ang birth record mo appears sa civil registrar. Second, an admission of legitimate filiation by the parent if ever nga kanang dili sila minyo. Okay? In the absence of the foregoing evidence, the legitimate filiation shall be proved by open and continuous possession of the status of a legitimate child or any other means allowed by the rules of court. So, the action to claim legitimacy may be brought by the child during his or her lifetime. So, anybody can claim to be legitimate within their lifetime, proven that the heirs shall have a period of 5 years within which to institute the action. So, legitimate children have the right, first of all, to bear the surnames of both their father and mother. So, madala niya ang apelido sa iyang mama o sa iyang papa. To receive support from their parents. And to be entitled to the legitimate and other successional rights granted to legitimate children. But illegitimate children can also establish their illegitimate filiation in the same way and in the same evidence as legitimate children. But they are only entitled to use the surname of their mother and shall be under the parental care of their mother as well, and shall be entitled to support gihapon from the father in conformity with this code. So the legitimum of each legitimate child shall consist of 1/2 of the legitimum of a legitimate child. So, but then, na naman tayo mga provisions recently, if I may search, provisions allowing use of paternal surname. So, under RA 9255, so the child can now use the father's surname if the father legally recognizes the child through affiliation. So, here we have legitimated children. So, only children conceived and born outside of wedlock of parents who at the time dili paminyo were not disqualified by any impediment to marry each other may be legitimated. So, if nauna kag katawo and then nagminyo imong ginikanan, so pwede ka mahog nga legitimated child if i-process na ninyo. Same rights gyapon ta sa legitimate children, and the effects of your legitimization shall retroact to the time of the child's birth. So, you are considered legitimate. Okay. So, support comprises everything indispensable for sustenance, dwelling, clothing, medical attendance, education, and transportation. And this is given to children, of course, by their parents. So, the following are obliged to support each other: spouses, legitimate ascendants and descendants, parents and their legitimate children, and the legitimate and illegitimate children of the latter, parents and their illegitimate children, and legitimate brothers and sisters. So, even if dili mo legitimately related sa manag-igsoon, you are likewise bound to support each other to the full extent. Okay. Alright. I don't think this is necessary. So in case of foundlings, abandoned or neglected or abused children, parental authority shall be entrusted in summary judicial proceedings to the heads of children's homes, orphanages, and similar institutions duly accredited by the proper government agency, which is TSWD, katurang mga agencies nga part sa ACAP. Okay, accredited child caring agencies of the Philippines. So, in case of death, absence, or unsuitability of the parents, substitute parental authority shall be exercised by the surviving grandparent, unless they are also dead. So, in that case, the substitute parental authority shall be in this order: the surviving grandparent, of course, if wala na siya, then the oldest brother or sister over 21 years of age, unless unfit or disqualified, and then after pagidana, the child's actual custodian over 21 years of age. Okay. So this time let's talk about criminal law. So criminal law is the branch or division of law which defines crimes, treats of their nature, and provides for their punishment. So what is crime? A crime is an act committed or omitted in violation of a public law forbidding or commanding it. So in law, we have a legal maxim saying nulla crimen sine lege, which means where there is no law, there is no crime. So kung wala law nga nag-forbid aning a certain butang, then it's not a crime by technicalities. So what are the sources of criminal laws in the Philippines? First, the Revised Penal Code, or Act number 3815 and its amendments. Na dili naka-dictate tanan sa mga di pwede buhaton, no? Special penal laws passed by the Philippine Commission and other previous iterations of the Congress. And then the penal presidential decrees, okay, issued during martial law. So we also have the definition of police power. So the state has the power, the authority, through the police power, to define and punish crimes and to lay down the rules of criminal procedure. So part ni sa police power kuno sa state nga nasa autoridad nga mo define unsay krimen, unsay mga criminal acts and how to punish them. So the right of prosecution and punishment for a crime is one of the attributes that by a natural law belongs to the sovereign power. So naapod tay mga limitations based on the 1987 Constitution sa pag-create og mga penal nga law. So first, no ex post facto law or bill of attainder shall be enacted. So dili pwede nga kanang backtrack ang criminal law, no? And then naapod tay, no person shall be held to answer for a criminal offense without due process. So dili pwede nga dakpon lang ka and then lahos-lahos na ni. Of course, if ever na amang gani sila warrant nga need ka ipaadto sa station for some reason, they are technically not allowed to hold you for much longer than you would allow if wala sila official nga reason to arrest you. So an ex post facto law means making criminal an act done before the passage of the law. So kung naay law nga ipas kunuhay karon 2026 and then mingon siya nga criminal na kuno ang pagpanglibak sa Facebook, kunwari lang. Okay, so if naglibak ka pag 2025, girl, di na to siya mabalik. Oy, di na ka madakpan. Okay, so muna siya ipasabot sa bill of attainder. And then aggravates a crime or makes it greater than it was. So kung ang penalty sa una sa panglibak kunuhay sa Facebook is 500 pesos lang, dili na siya pwede nga usbon na to niya mahimo siyang 1k nya makabayad pud gag 1k. Ang kanang changes is for the future na siya. Okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that we also have statutory rights for the accused, right? So even if accused na kay rights. So what is that? First, to be presumed innocent until the contrary is proved beyond reasonable doubt. So even if you are a suspect, you will remain a suspect unless na-judge siya proof, no, nalitis na ka and na-prove na gyud nga ikaw ang sadan. So then you are innocent until proven guilty. Next, to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation against him. So dili man pwede dakpon ka nga wala ka ba nga nung gidakop ka or nga nung gihearing ka. So muna nga basahan ka sa kaso nimo. So dapat informed ka sa nature, unsa may nature sa law nga imong gi-break kunuhay and unsay reason nga nung imo nang gi-break. Yeah, so you must be arraigned properly. So to be present and defend in person and by counsel at every stage of the proceedings. So when we have proceeded already to the hearing na, you are also entitled to be there and to defend yourself through your counsel. So you can also testify as a witness in your own behalf, but that also means you are subject to cross-examination. To be exempt from being compelled to be a witness. So if di sa kaganang mo witness, okay ra sad. Huh? So to confront and cross-examine the witnesses against you at the trial. So pwede ka mo question pud ana. To have compulsory process issued to secure the attendance of witnesses. So need ka witness, pa-secure ang attendance. To have a speedy, impartial, and public trial. I don't know about speedy though. To appeal in all cases allowed and in the manner prescribed by law. So as a person, as an accused person, you also have some rights which you may waive. First is the right of the accused to confrontation and cross-examination. So if you don't want to, you don't have to do that. But there are also rights which cannot be waived. For example, the right of the accused to be informed. So you really have to be informed. Okay? So what are the characteristics of criminal law in the Philippines? We have general or generality. So criminal law is binding on all persons who live or sojourn in the Philippine territory. So anybody who lives here, who comes here, if general man ang criminal law, so it doesn't pick. If you did a crime, you did a crime, honey. And then there's also territoriality. So criminal laws undertake to punish crimes committed within Philippine territory. So if you're a Filipino and you did a crime elsewhere, like let's just say you did a crime in Vietnam or something, we don't have jurisdiction over you, queen. So perspective, a penal law cannot make an act punishable in a manner in which it was not punishable when committed. So as I said, bill of attainder, ex post facto law. Okay. So somewhat touching on deviance as well, but also looking into criminology. So we have two main theories in criminal law, and these are basically like the perspectives on why people commit crime. So first we have the classical theory, which says that men have free will, right? So they know what is right, they know what is wrong, and as rational beings, we are guided by the thought that a crime carries with it a corresponding penalty. So if you do commit a crime, kabawon jud ka, nga naay consequences for that. So the basis of criminal liability is human free will, and the purpose of the penalty is retribution. So basis of liability is naabad jud kay free will nga mobuhat ang krimen. Yang purpose sa pagbadlong sa imo is pagbadlong, no? So pag-retribution, pagbalos. So it believes that man is essentially a moral creature. Natay morals kuno with naputay free will to choose between good and evil, thereby placing more stress upon the effect or result of the felonious act than upon the man, the criminal himself. So because this theory sees a man as somebody who knows what is right and wrong, who can choose, has the ability to choose, then the focus is on the effect. Kaya nga no, kay bao naman ka nga na-effect ang pag-krimen nimo. But why do you still do it, no? So it has endeavored to establish a mechanical and direct proportion between crime and penalty, and there's a scant regard to the human element. So kever, basta kagipili na nimo, no? So dapat you should have known the consequences, blah 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 blah. But adik sa positivist theory, this school of thought views a criminal as merely a sick man who needs reformation and cure instead of punishment. So that man is subdued occasionally by a strange and morbid phenomenon which constrains him to do wrong in spite of or contrary to his volition. So even if you are inclined to not do crime, sometimes kuno, this theory believes that naadjud kuno yung mga times nga makapush sa imo to do wrong. So that crime is also essentially a social and natural phenomenon, and as such cannot be treated and checked by the application of abstract principles of law. Kaya na ay human element nga gi-involve kuno ani. So in the U.S., or at least even in the Philippines, no, we always hear about how the focus is on whether the person did the crime voluntarily or not, with knowledge and intent to do so. So these are the three reasons why the act or omission in felonies must be voluntary. First, the revised penal code, which is based on the U.S., continues to be based on the classical theory, which says that man has criminal liability on the basis of human free will. Second, acts or omissions punished by law are always deemed voluntary. Kaya nga no, man is a rational being man kuno, di ba? And one must prove that his case falls under Article 12 to show that his act or omission is not voluntary. So dapat patunayan din nimo nga dili voluntary imong gibuhat, meaning wala ka kabaw, nga may ngana na siya, wala ka ba sa consequences and all that. In felonies by dolo, so the act is performed with deliberate intent, which must necessarily be voluntary. So if let's just say imong crime is nipatay kag tao, right? Dolo imong felony kung kay jud ka nga gusto nimo siya patyon. In felonies pud by culpa, the imprudence, culpa meaning fault, imprudence consists in voluntarily. So for example, nakapatay kag tao kay paspas kay ka nag-drive nya hubog pa jud ka. So that imprudence, ang imong kasyunga nga nagpaspas kag drive is voluntary, but without malice kay wa man nimo tuyo nga makapatay ka. Okay, but still it is a felony done by culpa. So also may requisites para makaingon ka nga ang crime nimo kay dolo or malice. First, you must have freedom while doing an act or admitting to do an act, meaning wala ka pugsa nga mang-hold up. For example, wala ka pugsa nga manuslak, wala ka pugsa nga mamusil. Sunod, you must have intelligence. Kay bao ka nga manuslak ka. Kay bao ka nga mang-hold up ka. Kay bao ka nga crime na gibuhat. Third, you must have intent. Imo jud nang kagustuhan nga mang-hold up ka. Imo jud nang gustuhan nga mang-snatch car or whatever. So, those are the three elements para mahog nga dolo ang isa ka felony.